He was born into a world that did not promise him privilege, comfort, or certainty. His father came from the hills of Kenya, a man of ambition who traveled halfway across the globe to study, and his mother came from the heart of America, carrying within her the values of hard work, kindness, and curiosity. Life was not straightforward. His parents' marriage ended, and he was raised in part by his grandparents, ordinary people who lived with extraordinary faith in the idea that every child deserves a chance. His early years were marked by constant change, moving between Hawaii and Indonesia, where he learned how to adapt to different cultures, languages, and people. These experiences were not just about survival, they were about building a worldview that embraced diversity instead of fearing it. From an early age, he discovered what it meant to stand between two worlds. He was not from a single story or culture but from many. This taught him empathy, the ability to see through the eyes of others. Growing up in neighborhoods where people came from every background, he learned that what connects us is more powerful than what separates us. His family taught him humility, reminding him that respect must be earned through actions, not demanded through titles. The lessons of honesty and responsibility shaped him before any ambition of leadership ever entered his mind. His mother's influence was strong. She believed education was the greatest gift a parent could give a child, so she would wake him early before school to study, determined that he would never waste his potential. Those long hours of learning, often when other children were still asleep, built a discipline that stayed with him for life. His grandparents, too, provided stability. His grandfather, a veteran, and his grandmother, a hard-working woman who rose early each day to provide for the family, embodied resilience. They were not wealthy, but they were rich in values. Their lives became proof to him that dignity does not come from possessions, but from the way you live and the sacrifices you make for others. Though he did not have the perfect childhood, the challenges themselves became his strength. In facing absence, he learned responsibility. In facing difference, he learned tolerance. In facing change, he learned adaptability. Instead of breaking him, these experiences built within him the belief that your beginnings do not determine your destiny. The world around him may have been uncertain, but inside his family he found the unshakable belief that character matters more than circumstances. He carried these lessons into his youth and beyond. Every achievement he pursued, from the classroom to public service, was rooted in what his family had shown him. Their sacrifices gave him a sense of duty. Their struggles gave him perspective. Their faith gave him courage. His beginnings were humble, but his vision was bold. And it is in this balance that his life offers inspiration. No matter where you start, no matter how modest your circumstances, the values of family, discipline, and resilience can lift you toward heights you never imagined. Education was never just about books and classrooms, it was the path that shaped character, discipline, and vision for the future. In his life, learning became both a refuge and a foundation. He did not grow up surrounded by wealth or privilege, yet his hunger for knowledge pushed him forward when circumstances could have held him back. Every library card, every late night of study, every moment of curiosity became part of the journey that would one day allow him to stand as a leader before millions. From his earliest years, his mother made sure that education was treated not as an option but as a responsibility. She would wake him before the sun, making him sit at the table to complete his lessons. While other children might have still been asleep, he was being taught discipline, the habit of rising early, and the understanding that opportunities are earned through effort. This rhythm of diligence instilled in him the idea that learning was not just for passing exams but for building a life. As he grew older, the value of discipline became clearer. In classrooms where students came from many different backgrounds, he learned not to measure himself against others, but against his own potential. That constant pursuit of improvement shaped his character. When he eventually walked the halls of Columbia University, it was not with the arrogance of someone entitled to success, but with the humility of someone who had fought to reach there. Each lecture, each paper, each debate became a brick in the foundation of his growth. The journey did not end there. At Harvard Law School, he rose to a position that few had achieved before him, becoming the first black president of the Harvard Law Review. This achievement was not the result of luck but of long nights, countless hours of reading, and an unwavering sense of discipline. Surrounded by some of the brightest minds, he proved that hard work, persistence, and focus can place you on equal ground with anyone, regardless of where you began. His success was a message not only to himself but to young people everywhere, that education remains the great equalizer in a world of inequality. Discipline was not limited to academics. He lived simply, spending carefully, and choosing books over luxuries. This simplicity gave him clarity and focus, preventing distractions from pulling him away from his purpose. It taught him that true wealth is not measured by possessions, but by knowledge and the ability to use it for the good of others. He became a man who valued the power of words, the depth of history, and the importance of ideas. The lessons of discipline carried into every part of his life. Whether in his role as a lawyer, a teacher of constitutional law, or a public servant, the same habits of preparation and persistence guided him. He learned that excellence does not come in bursts of inspiration, but in the steady, consistent effort repeated day after day. His education gave him knowledge, but his discipline gave him the strength to use it. Through this journey, his life became a testament that education opens doors and discipline keeps them open. It is not enough to dream of success, one must be willing to prepare for it, sacrifice for it, and stay committed to the path even when obstacles appear. His story reminds us that with discipline in learning and discipline in life, anyone can rise beyond circumstances and shape a future brighter than the past. Service became the cornerstone of his journey long before the world knew his name. After completing his education, he could have chosen the easy road of wealth and personal comfort, but instead he walked into neighborhoods on the south side of Chicago where unemployment, poverty, and frustration weighed heavily on families. The decision to serve was not glamorous. The pay was modest, the work was exhausting, and the progress was slow. Yet in those streets and community centers, he discovered the heart of leadership. It was not about commanding from above, but about walking alongside those who struggled, listening to their voices, and working together to build solutions. He spent countless hours knocking on doors, meeting with church leaders, and gathering residents who felt forgotten by a system that seemed distant and uncaring. He helped people find ways to rebuild after factory closures had taken jobs from fathers and stability from households. He brought together mothers and pastors, teachers and workers, giving them a platform to voice their needs, and a structure to take collective action. In those small meetings where people gathered on folding chairs, he witnessed the power of ordinary citizens to shape their own destiny when given the tools and the belief that their efforts mattered. What he learned in those years was that service is not a one-time act but a lifestyle. It is the choice to put others before yourself, even when recognition is rare and obstacles are many. He discovered that real change is not delivered from the top down but grows from the bottom up. The strength of a community lies in its ability to unite, to take ownership of its challenges, and to work together for solutions. His role was never to be a savior but a partner, helping people discover the power they already possessed. These experiences also shaped his vision of leadership. He understood that speeches and promises mean little if they are not rooted in the realities of everyday people. By walking through neighborhoods where hope was scarce, he carried their stories into every room he later entered. He learned to connect policy with human need, numbers with faces, and statistics with families. This ability to bridge the gap between power and people would later become the force behind his rise on the national stage. In serving, he also faced frustration. Progress came slowly, and sometimes victories were small. But he realized that even small changes, like helping one neighborhood gain a new job training program or one family secure housing, could ripple into larger transformation. Service required patience, resilience, and faith that persistence eventually creates impact. These lessons prepared him for the challenges of higher office, where obstacles would be greater but the principles remained the same. Community organizing was not simply about solving problems, it was about instilling belief. It was about reminding people who felt powerless that their voice mattered, and that they were not invisible. It was about lighting a spark in the hearts of citizens so they could stand up, organize, and demand change. This belief in the power of people never left him. It became a guiding philosophy that shaped how he spoke, how he governed, and how he inspired. The years of service and organizing proved that leadership is born not in positions of power, but in the daily work of listening, building, and lifting others. His life in those days became a living message to anyone who doubted their ability to make a difference. True greatness begins not with wealth or fame, but with the decision to serve where you are, with what you have, for the people who need it most. There are moments in history when words rise above politics and become a turning point for an entire nation. For him, that moment came on a stage in 2004 at the Democratic National Convention. He was not yet a national figure, not yet a household name, but when he stepped to the podium, he carried with him the lessons of his life, the struggles of his community, and the hopes of countless ordinary people. What made that speech different was not just the rhythm of his voice, but the authenticity of his story. He did not speak from privilege but from experience, from a childhood shaped by diversity and a career spent serving those who often felt voiceless. He told the nation that unity mattered more than division. He painted a vision of a country that was not split into red states and blue states, but bound together as the United States. In a political climate that thrived on conflict, his words reminded people that what unites us is stronger than what divides us. For those listening, it was more than political rhetoric, it was a reminder of the America they believed in, one where opportunity and dignity belonged to everyone. The power of that speech came from its honesty. He did not promise that challenges would vanish overnight. Instead, he offered hope rooted in reality. He spoke of families working long hours just to make ends meet, of immigrants who came with nothing but dreams, of soldiers serving far from home, and of young children who deserved a chance to rise higher than their circumstances. By weaving together these stories, he connected with people from every background, making them feel seen and valued. For many, it was the first time they heard a voice that reflected the complexity of their own lives. He represented possibility, someone who had come from modest beginnings and stood with confidence on the national stage. That night, his story became larger than himself. It became a symbol of what America could be if hope was stronger than fear, if unity was greater than division, and if opportunity was real for everyone. The reaction was immediate. Millions watching at home felt a spark of inspiration. Commentators and citizens alike began to ask who this young leader was. In the days that followed, he went from being a rising figure in his state to a national name spoken with admiration and curiosity. What people responded to was not only his skill as a speaker, but his ability to make them believe again. In an age where trust in politics often felt broken, his words rebuilt a bridge between leaders and the people. That speech did more than launch a career, it marked the beginning of a movement. It set in motion the idea that he could one day hold the highest office, not because of ambition alone, but because people wanted to follow someone who spoke to their better angels. The power of that moment proved that speeches are not just words but tools that can shape history, stir hearts, and give courage to a generation. Looking back, it is clear why it was called the speech that changed everything. It carried the essence of his journey, the spirit of his service, and the hope of a nation longing for unity. It was not just about one man's rise to prominence, but about millions of people daring to believe that change was possible. In that moment, the path toward the presidency opened, lit by the strength of words that reached deep into the soul of a nation. Leadership is often judged by the power someone holds, but true leadership is revealed in how a person lives day by day. His lifestyle as a leader was not built on wealth or extravagance but on discipline, humility, and balance. Even in the highest office, when the world watched his every step, he carried himself with the simplicity of a man who never forgot where he came from. He began mornings with routine, often exercising or playing basketball, because he believed physical health strengthened mental clarity. He spent evenings with his family whenever possible, sitting at the dinner table, listening, and being present. These moments reflected his belief that leadership without family grounding could never truly be complete. His legacy was not only in the policies he created but also in the way he lived. He modeled discipline by reading deeply, often staying up late to study history, reports, and letters from citizens. He believed that decisions must be rooted in knowledge, not impulse. This habit of preparation became a signature of his leadership style. People around him knew he did not speak without thought, and he did not decide without considering how ordinary families would be affected. That deliberate approach reflected a life shaped by education, service, and resilience. The discipline of his lifestyle also extended to humility. While he occupied one of the most powerful positions in the world, he continued to engage with people directly, shaking hands, listening to their struggles, and speaking to them as equals. He never separated himself from the reality of those he led. The ability to connect with individuals, to remember names and stories, was part of what made people feel he understood them. His leadership was not about commanding from above but walking alongside, reminding others that their voices mattered. His legacy was further shaped by his balance of family and service. He showed the world that being a leader did not mean sacrificing the people closest to you. Protecting time for his wife and daughters was not a weakness but a strength, demonstrating that leadership must begin at home. By showing affection and loyalty to his family, he reminded others that power is temporary but relationships are lasting. This example inspired countless families who saw in him the image of a leader who valued love as much as duty. Beyond family, his lifestyle reflected a commitment to hope and progress. He constantly reminded people that challenges could be met through unity and effort. Even after leaving office, his life remained an example of service. He continued to write, speak, and encourage new generations to step into leadership. His legacy is not contained within buildings or monuments, but in the countless individuals motivated to pursue justice, fairness, and opportunity because of his example. History will remember him not only for the milestones he achieved but for the way he lived through them. He taught that leadership is not about being perfect, but about striving each day to be better, to listen more, and to give more than you take. His legacy is a reminder that greatness is not measured by how long power lasts but by the impact it leaves behind. Through humility, discipline and service, he left a path for others to follow, a path that says true leadership begins not with titles, but with the choices you make every day to lift others higher.